Happy Monday. The topic I want to address today, I don't really know how to say it succinctly, so I'll say it as a sentence, but it's around the idea of how to put up boundaries or not when you're maybe in a flow state, in the zone, really on it with something you're working on. And I think, not everyone has this. It's like a constant thing, but I think if you can find a job or work that is actually hard to put down, that's an example. And when I say hard to put down, I mean because you love it, not because of work pressures. So one that like your boss is like trying to get you to take breaks, that kind of thing. But it's also true for hobbies. So it's not uncommon with musicians. Oftentimes I'm like that with music. I can play for often quite a few hours, and especially when I'm with people, it doesn't really feel like that long. So that's what I'm referring to. And specifically, you'll hear, like I've heard stories of music artists and producers who do like multi-day recording sessions. And the question there is, when is this appropriate? When isn't it? And the reason I bring that up is because we know a lot about the human condition regarding routine and structure and what goes into your overall health with the way that you spend your day to day. One of the biggest examples is sleep, as well as diet, nutrition, and exercise. Those, I've talked about in a lot of videos, but you get those things in alignment and your mental health on average will be unrecognizably better, especially if all those items were being done very poorly prior. So this feeling of, well, I'm kind of in this flow state, so what should I do? And I think a lot of my answers to that come from a place of nuance. It depends. And I'll tell you, for myself, if I have a really big work day, well, I know, for instance, next week will be a really big work day for me. I'll probably work a little bit later than I intend to, and then the next day I have to get up a couple hours earlier than I normally do. And now, if everything's in alignment, if my sleep is lined up well, if I'm eating well, if I'm exercising well, if my general, what you would call like your broader self-care categories are all taken care of, I'll be able to do that one time next week and bounce back pretty easy. I could maybe even get away with doing it 2 nights in a row, but really after that, it's going to catch up with me and I'm going to have some problems physiologically as well as mentally. And I think that's what's worth paying attention to is, anytime you don't take care of your body, you're not really making that up. So, people who go out and get drunk over the weekend and they say, well, I'm back and I'm good to go by Monday. You've still poisoned yourself all weekend. So you might be back to functioning on Monday, but if this becomes a regular habit, that's not going to be useful long term. Another example that I could use as something to consider, I'll give 2 that involve reading. But I have personal life things that I like to study that relate to my work, but I would study them regardless of if I was doing this job. And I had a structured map of how I would do this, a specific topic with about 5 books that I was studying that I was going to transition then to another topic of about 6 books, and then a singular book for a different topic that I was anticipating being done with in February. That first topic is one that I'm actually still in because I'd slowed down a little bit and I'm going to be transitioning soon. But when I got going with it, I actually struggled to put it down. And so for me, the potential effort during set-aside study periods was gone. Like, I was eager to study and I was trying to find more time to study. Like, I didn't want to wait till my scheduled time. And so for me, I took advantage of that. I'm like, and it's not like a full flow state, bear in mind. This is like a week to week. I'm really into this topic. I'm talking about it with people. So I don't want to interrupt it with some pre-structured plan to move on to a new topic. And that's something that I reflected on. Like, is there any problem continuing through this? No. So that's my encouragement there, is that question mark of, can you ask yourself, does this impact me negatively to continue? So that's an example of no. There's another book series that I've been reading right now, a fiction series, and it's for the first time in probably a decade a series that I've lost track of time while reading. Normally I'm just aware of the clock and what's going on, and it's not necessarily unrestful, but I'm not lost in the book in terms of time. But yeah, just like fully absorbed. And that's not as common with me with fiction as it used to be. So I've started a new book series that's really done that for me. And I'm like, well, maybe I should pace myself because the series isn't done yet, but there's quite a few out. And then I thought, no, I'm going to ride this enjoyable period of just reading all of them back to back, and I don't need to read other stuff in between. And there's other types of entertainment that I enjoy, and I'm just putting them on the back burner because at the end of the day, it's for entertainment and for joy. It's not this task that has to be done. So for me, I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm going to read them sequentially. I'm not going to pace myself like some people say is really important to do with like, oh yeah, you should pace yourself with it. It's like, I'm enjoying it. I'm going to enjoy it. Not rushing it. I'm not neglecting responsibilities to read it. But in my downtime, I'm reading that instead of watching TV or playing a game or scrolling on my phone. I'm just reading this book series. So that's where I'm just like, yeah, it doesn't harm. So I think that's this baseline that I assess. Is there any harm in doing this? And to go back around to the work piece, next Monday, I don't anticipate losing sleep that night, but typically I get home and I have a little bit more time in the evening to do other stuff or to wind down. And next week I'll get home about an hour late, and then again, like I said, get up 2 hours early. So I'll probably lose a little sleep on the morning side. And I'm like, this is something I'm going to do one time. This time around, I would lose sleep. I would not want to do this multiple days in a row. And knowing myself, and this is something that's important, when you push outside of your routines and habits and boundaries, pay attention to how you respond. Physiologically, not how cognitively as well, but reflect on how the entirety of who you are is responding to that adjustment. And sometimes these things take time. So for instance, you'll notice physiological changes if there's going to be any, usually pretty quick, depending on how self-aware you are. But relationship things, so let's say you're choosing to work late, and typically in the evening you get home, you have dinner with your spouse or your family, and now you're getting home like halfway through dinner time, but you're really feeling it with work and things are going great. Well, my guess is that's going to ultimately start to stack up on your family, and most families will probably acknowledge that too late. Usually kids won't proactively bring that up. Some will, depends on their personality and how acute they are to the situation. But sometimes spouses may or may not. It depends on the pre-established relationship you have. But you will more than likely feel a hurt in the family dynamic. But that won't necessarily happen right away. It's like the idea of you can go a day without water, but if you go every day without water, you'll die. So where's the line? And we have that info, but for someone to say, well, I didn't drink water all the day and I was fine, so I'm gonna do that again tomorrow. So we can get away with things that aren't healthy or best for us sometimes. So this is where asking the trade-off. So there's really never a good trade-off for going without water. I can't think of any other than if you're working in emergency services or something, you don't have access, or you're stuck something not like a choice thing, you just couldn't get to water. But things like work, it's like, yeah, maybe you could work longer, but is it useful? And is this something that's easily habit forming versus, I'll use myself as an example. Every Monday I have the opportunity to stay at work late. It's my long day in general. I'm here for 11 hours or so, 10, 11 hours. And I could always show up earlier or later. Like Monday's more or less just completely set aside for work for me across the board. Other days of the week, mix of work and personal. So I have the option to work late every single Monday. So I could decide, well, I'm just going to work until I feel like I'm about to pass out, and then I'm going to go home. Or I could go home early and keep working like it's just all work mode. And I think if you're doing that every Monday, that's, a seventh of your week guaranteed. And that also assumes that there's never going to be another time in the week that you work late or get overworked. So, assuming it stays consistent, that's 1 of 7. Well, to drain yourself that way 1/7 of the time is kind of a lot when you think about it. And so doing that consistently, you have to start to wonder, what's the sustainability of that kind of schedule versus like what I'm talking about next week of, I know I'm going to work more hours next Monday as well as get less sleep because I got to be up early. I can do that periodically and it's not going to be a problem. And even then, that next day, I'll have room to take a nap if I need to. So that's really the question to ask. And so for me, having a different schedule next week is a one and done thing. It might happen other times of the year, but it's not something that's consistent. Whereas just choosing to work late, the ability to do that easily then makes it tempting and more likely to become a habit. So, another way to look at that is to pay attention to what things are just simple to do over and over. If it's really easy to do over and over and it's not super healthy, that's something to reflect on and ask yourself, do I need to put up safeguards for this? Okay. Versus, let's say, you work for a company that has major launch days, or like me, I also do training. So I have training days that are a big deal. I do weekly ones, but I also do monthly trainings that are more effort. So the monthly training weeks, those last few days leading up to the training, I'm going to have more devoted time towards the training. And that's normal. Now, if I had to do that every single week, I'd have to dramatically change how I do my work, because prepping for those trainings every week means I can't do the regular work. So, when those trainings are monthly, so I do 12 a year. So I can afford a little bit of time every about 4 weeks to do a final preparation outside of the normal time I have scheduled for it on a given week. Again, if they were every single week that way, which I do weekly trainings as well, but those are much less intense and they require much less of me than the monthly trainings. So it's just something to think about with the work that you do. But also anything you do. This could be home projects, just pay attention to context. If you're doing a home project and you can take your time, just pace it. If you had to rent scaffolding, then, that might cost more every week that you have it. So that might be something that you and your partner talk about. And you're like, hey, this is going to cost X amount of dollars a week to have this scaffolding or to rent this saw for me to do this project on my own. So I'm going to have to kind of lock in for this and get it done. And then if you're in a healthy relationship, you both agree on that. That's not just something you just decide you're doing. And the same usually with work. So anytime I'm working extra late and it's planned, or I have extra work I need to do, I talk to my wife about it first, and we make sure it actually makes sense. And then any day that I'm working late that I don't necessarily intend to, I usually call her about the time I would normally leave work. And I say, hey, I'm going to have to work later. And at any time, she's free to more or less tell me no if she needs to. Although that's a whole nother video for how our yes-no dynamic works. But there's always a built-in trust there that we're both making what we think is the wisest decision, not a stupid decision. So, but if it's important stuff, she can negate that. But then also I know, like if we have family in town or other stuff going on, I'm just not going to work late. The thing can wait till tomorrow. So that's only usually an issue if there's legitimate deadlines that I either drop the ball on getting them done on time, or stuff came up very last minute and there's really no way around it other than just it has to be done now. So yeah, I think it's good to have a formula and a structure overall, but it's also good to have nuance. So I think anytime you can create something strict and routine, do it, especially if it's only if it's healthy and good. But also understand that there are certain questions that get to be nuanced. So the question of, if you are working a job and it's only 40 hours ever, use myself as an example, owning a business, there's always room to do more. I can technically do less most weeks and get away with it, but if I do that every week, it's going to be a problem. If I overwork every week, it's going to be a problem. So some of that's week to week. So what needs done? What's the non-negotiable every single week? And then what are the things that, on Sunday I can kind of review and look at and be like, what does this week actually look like? And so a healthy mix of strong, rigid, routine structure and nuanced flexibility, I think is good. And a lot of times that happens through healthy counsel. So, if you have a spouse, working with them on that, if you have a business partner, with them, friends that understand the situation as best they can, but getting input is usually helpful, or even just advice from people online who've done it before. The only difference there is you're not really going to be able to, like if you're just looking at generalized info or reading a book, it's not going to be specialized to you and your situation, but it could still be helpful. So anyway, that is that topic. Yeah. So I'm curious for anyone listening, if you have any type of relatable experience, or what do you do when you are trying to balance just being on a roll with something, or extending yourself with trying to keep an overall balanced life? I'm always curious to hear how people manage that, and if they have a set system that they do that with, or if it just depends on the thing. So anyway, if you have thoughts, let me know. Other than that, I will see you all Monday. Talk to you later.